What's up, everybody? Dan Sports News here, bringing you the 22nd episode of the Dan Sports News and Friends podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Dan Sports News, Facebook at Dan Sports News, and Instagram at I am Dan Sports News to catch all my latest interviews and articles in sports. Today's guest is Butch Carter, who is a former NBA player and NBA coach. Check it out. How old were you when you first started playing basketball?
From the time I was very young, 6, 7, 8, I played everything. I played basketball, football, and baseball.
And when did you realize that you wanted to pursue a career in basketball instead of the other sports?
It really wasn't pursue a career. I just wanted to get a free education. No one in my family had ever graduated from college, so it became very important to me that I was at a high school where I played with some really talented older players, and they didn't have grades to get into college, Division I. They had to go through junior college. So I just had the right incentives. I had the right good examples and bad examples around me, and I chose to try to make my own example of how to get through the system and use it to get a free education.
And when did you realize you had the basketball abilities to play at the next level?
I really did. I never thought I'd play in the NBA. Like I said, my goal was to graduate from any university school of business, and I actually thought I was going to go to work for Procter & Gamble. And, didn't have a draft party or anything like that. I think I went fishing that day, and then my roommate called me and told me that Jerry West had called, that the Lakers had drafted me.
And what was that moment like, knowing that you got drafted in the NBA?
Well, again, it wasn't that exciting. Back then there was no guaranteed money. I wasn't a first-round pick. I was the first pick they took, I think. But, it was nice that I'd been drafted by the Lakers. I played against Magic Johnson in college. He was at Michigan State. I was in Indiana. But it was just a lot of work. And it's not what today's NBA is, with guaranteed contracts all the way through most of the second round. So I was glad to have the opportunity, and I was trying to figure out how it was going to affect my job opportunity with Procter & Gamble.
Right. Now, coming out of high school, what other schools offered you a scholarship, and why did you eventually choose Indiana?
I was offered more scholarships in football. Basketball was the McDonald's All-American. Football, I was first-team All-State tight end. But, you go on the visits, and back then in football, they were redshirting guys. Ohio State guys, when I was there, those guys would come out of the locker room wearing three-piece suits. Archie Griffin was carrying a briefcase. I just didn't fit in. I was a blue jeans, army jacket, T-shirts guy. Indiana University was graduating 5 seniors. So there was a great opportunity to go in and play at Indiana. It was 3-hour drive away from home, which I didn't want to go far away because I'm the oldest of 7 kids. But it just seemed like the right fit. All the Indiana games were on cable, so even if my family couldn't afford to come over, they could watch the games on cable at home.
Right. Now, you were injured and missed, was it the first 2 seasons in your college career?
I broke the 5th metatarsal in my foot the first day of practice as a freshman, and that really set me back a couple years. Back then, we're put in a hard cast. There were a lot of guys who were breaking the 5th metatarsal and needed surgery. I was one of the few guys that healed on my own, but I had a lot of atrophy in my leg and was having problems with my Achilles. So it was just a problem. I really should have redshirted, but Indiana didn't redshirt me, and it really kind of set me back.
And how did you overcome adversity with that injury?
I mean, look, basketball is fueled by kids who have no choice but to go forward and push forward. You don't have a backup plan when you're the oldest of 7 kids. mom's not even able to send you any money while you're in college. So, it's really, you have tunnel vision, you have focus. My kids have a lot greater choices in life than I had. The only goal for me was to improve the life for myself and my family, my younger brothers and sisters. And so, you have no choice. You lock in and you try to physically get better. And then you're searching to find yourself as a basketball player, the player that you were before you got injured.
Right. And you eventually won a NIT championship, which is pretty huge back then because it was basically as good as the NCAA championship. And that team with Isaiah Thomas, what was it like playing with Isaiah back in college?
Well, Isaiah changed the way I played because I didn't have to handle the ball as much. He handled the ball 70% of the time. The fact that I played with Isaiah, we got two other starters injured that year, and we still win the Big Ten championship is still amazing to me because basically we're playing with a lot of young players. That group, after I graduate, goes on and wins an NCAA title the next year in '81. The practices were hard because the young guys, the freshmen, we're not used to practicing as hard as we practice at Indiana. And being a senior, I was used to them. But it worked out well. I tried to help them and be a good leader for them. Being born the oldest of seven, you kind of get used to leading. And it worked out well. Everyone came, played, we had a good time, we won games. We came back and won the Big Ten championship when everyone had marked us off because preseason, I think we were number one in the country that year.
And you played against Magic Johnson, like you said, who was at Michigan State. How good was Magic back in college?
Magic was awesome. Magic was an anomaly. He was a player of the decade. No one had ever seen. There are so many barriers that college coaches and universities put around players to kind of shackle them and get them to conform. And Magic's willingness to work harder than anyone else, and his basketball IQ was superior. He was just a beast to deal with because you think of, okay, we're playing against Magic Johnson, but what you can't equate is that Magic's making everybody he plays with better than what they are. And so the guys on Michigan State, they got more open shots. They got a lot more layups. He was just a beast in the fast break. And again, he was in this constant pursuit of improving himself. So that team that Magic played on that won that championship, they were so tall, so long, all of them skinny. And they played a 2-3 matchup zone. You couldn't see over them to shoot the basketball. If you missed, he was off to the races. And he was so good at avoiding charges and passing the ball behind the defense. They were just a really good team. And Judd Heathcote let Magic be Magic, and it worked out very well.
You talk about being the oldest of seven. Your brother, Chris Carter, a Hall of Fame wide receiver, he could also play some basketball too back in high school, right?
Yeah, like I said, we played everything. We focused on just two sports once we got into high school, but coming up, we played a little bit of everything. And where we grew up at, we had great games in the summer in the playground. Chris grew up watching them. We had a community center in which my mom ran the daycare center there. So we always had keys to get in the gym in the winter or when it was supposed to be closed. It was just a really good environment to invest in yourself as an athlete.
And he won a Foot Locker dunk contest also, right?
Yeah, he won a foot. Chris is a lot better athlete than me. It was I never forget us talking to guys in the Lakers, and they were saying, asking about the family. I told them I got a little brother coming. He's a whole lot better than me. And Magic ran into Chris in Atlantic City at a heavyweight boxing match, and Chris was playing with the Eagles, and Chris couldn't get in the match. And when Magic walked by and Chris introduced himself, and Magic took him in, and Chris was like, "How do you know me?" He said, "Man, your brother's been talking about you for years." So Chris was outstanding young athlete. And, Chris, I compare to Chris helped me in my coaching career because I knew how to deal with this high-strung, egotistical athlete. I had raised one since he was 6 years old. So today's athlete, in my opinion, wasn't very hard to deal with because I'd been dealing with Chris my whole life.
Do you think Chris could have made it to the NBA if he tried?
Nope, because he and I agree, he was too small. Because I told him, like, Michael Jordan is 6'7", Scottie Pippen 6'8". So that's your modern 2 and 3 guard. So as far as a competitor, if someone wanted to take him as a competitor, but he wasn't a point guard, he's just a superior athlete. And he was able to take his basketball skills and provide him a very good living in the NFL.
Right, for sure. Now, when did you realize it was time to hang up your jersey and retire from basketball and become a coach?
Well, I always wanted to be a coach. So, if I probably got a picture in there somewhere, but I've got, my notes of every practice I've been in since I was at Indiana at 18 years old. So the transition happened for me for two reasons. One, my two oldest boys asked me one evening in training, before I was going to training camp, was I going to go away again? And away again meant that I was going to training camp while they were going to be at home. And that kind of bothered me. But the second one was I scored 50 points back-to-back nights in a Continental Basketball League game in a playoff, and no one picked me up. But again, that was back when the league was 23 teams. And so I just felt that I'd done everything possible. I'd kept myself in shape for someone to give a chance for someone to pick me up, and they didn't. And my high school job, Middletown, Ohio, the coaching job became available. So I basically walked out of the Continental Basketball Association and into being a high school coach. That worked out very well for me.
And when did you hear that they were going to start adding this new expansion team, the Toronto Raptors? When did you first hear about that?
I heard about it from Russ Granick. Russ Granick was one of the guys that was had befriended me, him and Stat Sanders in the NBA office, and they told me that an Indiana graduate looked like the front runner to get the team, John Bitto. So I think the All-Star game was in Minneapolis when I first met John and tried to get to know him and that there was going to be an expansion team in Toronto.
Right, and Isaiah Thomas also had, he was like a general manager for the team as well, right?
Right, I'm the one who introduced Isaiah to John.
Oh, okay, right. So when you first started coaching in the NBA, what was the biggest difference coaching in the NBA from high school?
Well, the biggest difference is the turnaround of games. You play 2 games at the most a week in high school, and you're going to play 4 in the heart of the NBA season. So the biggest issue I had was you don't have the proper practice time. But I found out that it goes to more with your players' intelligence and what's your defensive communication system in to help you get through the lack of practice in the NBA. So, but the intensity is far greater. The responsibility is far greater because you got guys making millions of dollars, and they're smart. You'll get guys who are traded, and they played for really good coaches, and they test your coaching acumen. So, it's a higher level. It really goes to what I call depth of knowledge. And if you're short in depth of knowledge of understanding what's going on in a game and how to put a corrective action in to get your team straightened out when they're not playing well, then you're going to drown in the NBA because they keep pouring the games on top of you, and you don't have the ability to change things around.
When people think of the Raptors, the Toronto Raptors, and hip-hop, they automatically think of Drake, who's basically their biggest celebrity fan. But there was actually another rapper who almost played on the Raptors, Master P. Can you tell me a little bit about that and you bringing him in for the exhibition games?
Well, basically, we brought him in for training camp, and but here's the thing: at the time, no one in North America really understood an expansion team in Toronto. If you talk to someone back in '96, '97, an American, they would tell you that Toronto was really close to Alaska. And the sad part was the administrators who were running the team had no idea. They had never, ever touched a sports franchise that was tied to the United States. So it wasn't just about Master P. It was, how do we put this thing on the map through marketing and winning games? So Master P was one piece. We took the name. We were the first team in the whole league to take the city name and put it on the jersey. We took the Raptor off and put Toronto with the purple jersey that Vince won the dunk contest in. We were the first team to do that. So all I did was, there were some marketing things that I did with my high school team. Like, my high school team was, the nickname was the Middies, but we were in Middletown, Ohio. So I took the Middies off the jersey and put Middletown. It gives you a larger identity. By putting Toronto on the jersey, that meant the 3.5 million people at that time that lived in the greater Toronto area, they get their mail, it says Toronto. Basically, is, how do you link people to what they do every day to your sports teams? And, that phenomenon, what we created by putting Toronto on, became a phenomena of what all the teams did, where they went to a second and third jersey with the city name on it of the team. You'll see Atlanta has now ATL. But that phenomenon was created in Toronto. We never got enough credit for it, for what we did. But Percy Miller, Master P, that was all part of it, So, again, then you see Jay-Z start to be attached with Brooklyn. So, most basketball players want to be rappers, and most rappers want to be basketball players. It was a natural fit. I don't see why people understand is that that's the route in which the NBA was going. They've consistently done it ahead of any other sports league with wrapping their arms around rap music, and it's been very successful.
Right. I think it's safe to say that the NBA has become, connected to hip-hop and rap over any other sport or any sport in America.
Yeah, it's not. It's not even close. They were ahead of it. They embraced it. I think a large part of that was getting Magic Johnson talking to David Stern about, at the All-Star game, why the players weren't coming to the concerts. And basically Magic told him, you bring in people that don't play our kind of music. So, it just all works. The issue at the end of the day is that the league has evolved, and that involvement has really blossomed into, this modern day billion-dollar industry.
Do you think Master P really could have played in the NBA?
No. Well, the issue is you can only sign 12 guys. You're gonna bring 17 to camp, so every team's got 5 guys who aren't gonna make it. So he was just in that pool of potential people. Do I think he could play in the NBA? The issue is, it became very evident quickly that he did not belong with Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, Doug Christie, D. Brown, Del Curry. These are all names that are well known in the NBA. So I don't think that Master P, it's his fault that he wasn't born with the gifts of those 5 guys we had on the perimeter.
Right. I understand what you mean there. Now, his son, Romeo Miller, he also played some basketball at USC with DeMar DeRozan. If Romeo was still playing and you were still coaching, would you offer him a shot at training camp like you did with his dad?
No, I don't. I don't think that Romeo has a skill set to even play in the G League. So Romeo is shorter than his father. You know, from the short period of little film I've watched on Romeo, he's not even a G League player, and I think that's so. Back then we didn't have the G League. There was no G League, so you'd have to bring extra guys in the training camp because there was no association with the Continental Basketball Association and the NBA at that time.
And they also have a younger brother named Hersey Miller right now. He's playing really well in high school. He plays with one of the top point guards and top big men in the nation at Minnehaha Academy in Minnesota. So we got to look out for him, too.
Well, the issue is that, the point guard position is very hard. All right? I would say if he has the same height issue as his brother, it'll be very hard. The point guards are very tall, very athletic. Probably as the league has evolved, the point guard position has changed the most as far as size and athletic ability.
Vince Carter, he's in his last season in the NBA. You coached him in his very first season in the NBA. What's the biggest change that you have seen in his game from when he first started to now?
Outside of age, the biggest change in Vince is that we had Vince on a very tight schedule, in-game schedule, and we did not allow him ever to rest on the court. Vince allowed us to coach him that way, to his credit, and I believe if I would have continued coaching him that way, he only would have been greater. I believe that Vince's career was there were decisions made on Vince's career by the Toronto management that were directly to the detriment of his career. They start overplaying him. They allowed Lenny Wilkins to play him 45 minutes a game. You just cannot do that with a young player. They did not understand anything about load management. And load management I had learned from watching Pat Riley handle Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the latter stages of his career. So you don't put a bunch of miles. 2-year-olds don't run in the Kentucky Derby. There's a reason for it. But I saw two of the young players that I coached, Tracy McGrady, go to Orlando, and Doc Rivers play him 42, 45 minutes a game, and Vince be allowed to play those minutes. And it's to the detriment of the franchise, and it's too bad. But it goes to the point in which I originally said, the people who were assigned to run the team had no idea how to run a sports team associated with a U.S. organization, and there were things that they did that directly negatively affected the players on the team and the coaching staff.
So you're saying that there could have been a possibility that Vince Carter could have stayed longer in Toronto had that stuff not happened?
Well, let's put it this way. The Toronto Raptors are going to have 4 players go into the Hall of Fame, all right, that decided to leave Toronto. Tracy McGrady's already in the Hall of Fame. Chris Bosh is going to go in. Vince is going to go in. And Kawhi is going to go in. Can you name another franchise that had 4 players leave? 4 Hall of Fame players leave?
No, probably not, no. Besides LeBron James leaving his teams, but no.
Correct. That's 1. The Raptors are going to have 4.
Where do you rank Vince Carter among the best dunkers of all time?
I think the ranking him as a dunker is a disservice. If you look at Vince's numbers the first 2 years that I coached him, his trajectory was definitely going to be a Hall of Fame player and an All-Star. He would have been a 12 or 15-year All-Star. But again, the dunking part, you have to understand that it was a $500 fine if Tracy McGrady or Vince Carter would dunk in my practices. So for 2 years, they never got the dunk in practice. They could only dunk in the games. So I understood the value of showing them how to play basketball against the best teams in the league. So the dunking part, Vince knew when he made the dunk that he knew that in his interviews, he said the first thing he thought about was, man, coaches are going to be mad about me if I took the risk of injuring my shoulder or my arm when he put his arm down the rim. So it all worked out great, but I just see him, the value he created for a franchise that was sold 3 times before he was drafted. I just look, his value is far greater than just as a dunker.
Why weren't they allowed to dunk in practices? Was that your rule or the team's rule?
That was my rule. See, young players in the NBA fail because when they're developed, or the people working with it, they don't explain to them how the officials and the NBA rules negatively affect their career. So, as an example, right now the league has a rule called rule of verticality, right? The rule of verticality says that a player let's take Dudley from Brooklyn. Dudley can be in the restricted circle underneath the rim, but as long as he jumps straight up, they will never call a foul on him. If he jumps straight up or jumps backward, leaning back, they will never call a foul. When he jumps, he owns that space all the way to the roof of the building. So young guys, no one tells, if you go in there and jump into Dudley, and think of it, you hear consistently now, your best shot is a 3, your second best shot's a layup. Well, how in the hell is your best shot a layup on the rule of verticality?
Right. So you'd have to do a Euro step to go around.
You'd have to Euro step, you'd have to have a runner, or you got to do like Steph and have a banker that's outside the square.
Exactly. So you couldn't
because
dunk.
It's not just the rule of verticality. What they're not told young players is that, look, you don't play with a 10-foot rim. And this, as a young journalist, you need to understand. Young players fail because they go in thinking, I'm shooting just like I shot in college. Look, there are lots of guys who can jump to 11 and a half, 12 feet. They don't tell the story of little Steph Curry is running around my practices playing one-on-one with his dad and Tracy and Vince and comes up with a shot because he cannot see the rim. They're so tall. And it happens all the time. You'll see a guy come out of the ACC, he scored over 2,000 points, and he thinks he's going to get the same shots he got in the ACC. And half the time when you go below the free throw line, you're not even going to be able to see the rim. So that's why I was always so good at player development, because all the player development is based on this is how the officials and the NBA rules affect your life. So you have to train them as if, okay, someone's going to jump to 11 feet. So why am I going to let you dunk in practice when you're not going? It's not going to happen with Shaquille in there, David Robinson, or Duncan, Patrick Ewing. It's not going to happen.
Right, I understand what you're saying. What are your thoughts on Zion Williamson and his journey in the NBA now so far?
I love Zion. I hate he has the weight.
Do you think
right? Only Charles Barkley, as a young Charles Barkley, was able to carry the weight? I love Zion because I believe he is one of the best team players that have come into the NBA in the last 20 years. His personality is electric like magic. Zion Williamson went to Duke, and they told him that Rowan Barrett was the number 1 player in the country. It wasn't even close. Rowan Barrett will barely get any votes for Rookie of the Year. Zion, whenever he starts playing, as long as he stays healthy, I guarantee you he's going to average 20 points a game.
For sure, I can see it, yeah.
The question is he going to be able to stay healthy? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar told me one day he was doing yoga, and I Cap, why are you doing all this? He said, Butch, let me tell you about this league. Skinny in, skinny out. And I never forgot it. You do not need to put a bunch of weight. People who don't know what they're doing are touching these young players and telling them, oh, you got to get 10 or 15 pounds. I told in a recommendation to the New York Knicks, I told the GM, whatever you do, do not put weight on Robinson. Do not allow them to fool you with he's going to get $150 a day per diem money. He's eventually going to put weight on. It is more important for a young player's body to harden, and that's going to happen naturally by the pounding and the number of games. But you got to allow their body that 18-month period to mature. And any player that they go and dump weight on and tell him he's got to eat cheesecake and all these energy drinks, most of them get injured.
Back with Vince Carter, he won the 2000 Slam Dunk Contest. In your opinion, would you say that was the greatest slam dunk contest ever?
Greatest contest ever. I mean, I never really watched the dunk contest, so I can't comment on that. It wouldn't be fair for me to comment because, I didn't see Dr. J and David Thompson or Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins. So never been a fan of it, so can't really comment to it.
Right. And what was it like coaching Tracy McGrady, who was also a Hall of Famer?
They're two different animals. Vince is a more neutral mentality. Tracy is an alpha. Tracy wants what he wants right now. Tracy, we were able to get him in a regiment that he understand that we were all working in his best interest. Tracy fought me. He wanted me to overplay minutes. And Tracy, I believe to this day, is the only player to ever get a max deal that started less than 45 games. And but they're totally different players. Tracy McGrady could guard three positions. He could guard any three, he could guard any two, he could guard any backup one. And Tracy became the engine that really allowed us to be successful. His versatility allowed me to play him, Doug Christie, and Vince Carter together. And anytime you have three athletes like that, there are going to be nights in which you can be very, very good. But T-Mac got in the gym, always been a worker. It was tough for Tracy. He had been moved from his high school to a high school in North Carolina. And he gets drafted, not just in the NBA, he gets drafted into another country. The team had no idea of how to manage him. And when I got here, we got the woman to clean, found his place to live, deliver food to him. It was just really tough. He was taking a high school kid and putting him in a foreign country with no help. And we are, Canada's a foreign country. The money's a different color. The exchange rate, it's just tough. Milk comes in a bag, doesn't come in a carton. It's an adjustment. And no one put any forethought into that with Tracy. And I don't believe if I'd have gotten here, Tracy would have made it. He was in a really bad situation.
You also coached Muggsy Bogues. He was on that team. What do you remember about Muggsy's game? And had you ever seen anybody at his size be so good as he was?
Well, the truth about Muggsy is Muggsy was signed to run our second group in practice. And Muggsy over-delivered. I wish I'd have stayed around to get Muggsy another contract. Muggsy Bogues was a tremendous person for the Toronto Raptors, a tremendous teammate, and the hardest worker in practice. Muggsy Bogues' pressure defined how Tracy McGrady learned to become a better ball handler. It was just a really good environment, and I owe Muggsy a lot because we needed his veteran experience. I think when Muggsy was here, we had the lead going into the fourth quarter 59 times, and we won 54 of those games. A lot of that directly was due to put Muggsy in. They couldn't foul him. he'd make all the free throws. He was just a tremendous person, professional basketball player. Always came to practice ready to go. Always forced the first group into a very competitive environment.
Right. And Del Curry was also on that team. And was Steph Curry there as a little kid? Did you ever see him at the practices, running around and stuff like that?
Yeah, they were allowed. I told Del, you're coming, bring your family, you can do whatever you want. So, yeah, they were at practices. They were there early for the game. It was all good. I didn't allow them in the locker room on game night. I don't think that's a place for young guys, but they were there, and we saw them and allowed them to do their family thing. And the Currys are a real strong family, and they did their thing, and it was great.
Did you have any idea that Del's son was going to become this superstar?
Oh, no, because, you wouldn't think it, because back then with the rule changes, there's no way, as small as he was, with hand checking, that he would survive. Right? So, they took the hand check out, and they reduced the clock to 14 seconds on side out of bounds. That automatically put more possessions in the point guards. So, to his credit, he went to the right school and went to Davidson. He didn't go to a place where he wouldn't play. He went to a place where he played, and he was excited. He got it done.
Right. Now, what do you think of the Raptors' current team this season? And what did you think of them winning the NBA Finals last year?
First of all, them winning the NBA championship was awesome. It was awesome for the city. It was awesome for everybody. A lot of people worked there and worked through the years when it was bad, and it was just an awesome, because a lot of people came up here, played for the Raptors, coached for the Raptors, worked for the Raptors, and the rest of the NBA thought that we were alien nation. And so that alien nation became we the knower. And the general manager really did a great job of putting the team together and getting Kawhi, even though it was a rental. But the rental worked. You got the one trophy. And so no one can ever say, you've never done it. There are a lot of franchises who still say they've never done it.
Do you think they have a chance this year, maybe surprising some teams in the playoffs?
The issue is injuries. They've overplayed guys. Actually, they talked about load management, and then they haven't done really good load management with some of the guys. So Siakam never should have been put in this situation. Young player told everybody he was okay. Clearly he wasn't. He has a low body fat content anyway, so that he's going to be more subject to stress. So, well, with them being injured, they're going to look good some nights. They are a very good team, coached by a very good coach when healthy. And Nick Nurse proved with his boxing one, his triangle and two, his zone defense, that he's willing to go the extra yard. And a lot of coaches in the NBA have never coached in high school or college and are totally unprepared for the challenge of different defenses.
And you talk about load management. What are your thoughts on LeBron load management, Kawhi load management, and all that stuff?
I think it's outstanding. It's outstanding because all the players who played for non-guaranteed contracts, so the league could keep going. And now the salary cap does not allow a player who is stressed. It allows them to rest legally. And that's the way it should be. The NBA 82 games stretches the human body as far as possible, like a rubber band that may pop at any time. So they didn't use load management with Siakam. So now you got a guy you paid a max contract to, and he's not out there delivering 20 points to help his team win. He's not out there for the fans to see play. So the science behind load management has always been there. You're just overcoming the old ego of, you got to play every game. It's impossible with 82 games. Do it at the highest level.
Yeah, let's say LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard says, I'm going to only play 60 games on the season because I want to rest. Give or take, they win about 50 of those 60 games if LeBron and Anthony Davis play together. Do you think that's a smart decision to do?
Yes. How old's LeBron?
About 35?
Yeah, he's 35. And so if you took LeBron and go to Basketball Reference and look at the number of minutes LeBron has played versus all-time minutes. And normally you can tell when a player is going to start falling off the table. LeBron is not the player that he was 5 years ago. Load management is the acceptance of science related to the anatomic depreciation of a body. People get old. You can't do what you used to do. You accelerate their athletic ability by putting them in an 82-game schedule. So is he going to be the player he was when he was 19 or 25 or 30? It's impossible.
If they only played 60 games together, Anthony Davis and LeBron James, and if they win at least 50 of those games, that's a guaranteed spot in the playoffs. It doesn't matter what seed you are. You just want to make the playoffs because then you can make your run and go to the finals.
Agree. And that's what Toronto did with Kawhi. I mean, it's really, you combine Kawhi was available, and Nick Nurse did a couple really smart things in the playoffs. In the Philly series, he puts his defense in front on Game 3 because he was worried that he didn't want Philly to get out, and they're able to go with a little lead in at halftime. They win Game 3, so they keep their advantage. Game 3 against Milwaukee in Toronto, he goes and double teams Giannis on the pass in the low post, and Budenholzer's got no counter for it. Toronto wins the game, and basically, they run off with the series. So it's always a combination of things. The issue is to get yourself to a playoff where you have a chance to have those combinations. But, I seen Nick Nurse last year. And look, Nick's not perfect, but man, he got Brett Brown by changing into the defense. He gets Budenholzer by double teaming his best player, and Budenholzer not knowing how to counter a low post double team. And then he gets Golden State by running a box and one on Steph. So the player was available through load management, and the coaching staff did their job.
For this season, when it's all said and done, who do you have in the finals? Which teams do you think will come out of the East, and which teams from the West?
I see Boston. I see Boston and the Lakers.
What do you like about the Celtics team?
The problem I have with Milwaukee is that when they're playing good, everything's great. But if it gets a little dicey, Budenholzer's not like he draws up a play or has something special. Watched him against San Antonio last night. He's down there crying about somebody fouling Giannis. Giannis is the biggest walker in basketball. And most of his development has been based off of what the kid has invested in himself. But from an X and O standpoint, if you throw something at them that gets Giannis stopped in the playoffs, Budenholzer hasn't found an answer yet.
I agree with you with the Celtics because I think they're a really nice team that's young, and they have that experience going to the Eastern Conference Finals a couple years ago, led by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. What do you like about Jason Tatum's game?
I liked him when he came out of Duke. I think Jason has gone sideways. He should be involved in more plays, and he's not. If you're facing the basket on the right side, Last year, Jason's numbers went down because when he was facing the basket on the right side and would drive left, he always shot the ball back with his right hand. Now, remember what I told you about those guys that jump to 11 feet?
Right.
Right? So his efficiency went straight in the toilet because whoever was working him out all summer never said, hey, when you're driving left on the right side, you got to shoot this ball with your left hand, and you got to have some variance with it because you can shoot it straight in, but if he jumps, you got to have to go higher than 10 foot. So my concern over Jason is he and Jaylen Brown, both as wings, have an ability not to be able to. When I look at a young player, can he get in 7 plays any time in the game and dominate those 7 plays? Now, Jaylen Brown did that when Boston came in here and beat Toronto on Christmas Day, but that may be 1 or 2 of his whole career that he's ever come in and dominated 7 possessions. A great player, an all-star player, sometime in a game, he's just going to kill you in 7 possessions. He's going to be so good, it's going to force you to call timeouts. So I believe it's the strength of their new point guard, their head coach, and his ability to keep things moving. But Tatum plays more to show off than to win games.
Right. Well, I mean, I think Jason Tatum has some Kobe Bryant-like qualities in his game, in the way he fadeaways. Well, in the way he he does a good fadeaway. He kind of has a similar jump shot. Definitely a good shooting form. I think he's kind of like Kobe, only like 3 inches taller. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Kobe, but I could see some potential there.
Yeah, I mean, the potential was there. I don't disagree with you. I thought he had great potential because he was one of the few college wing players that had a real NBA crossover in college at Duke. But I see him regressing, and he's playing a style that is not in his best interest. He needs to be in more possessions. He needs to get more steals. He needs to be able to dominate a game, and the team allowed him to dominate a game. Because this is what everyone forgets. You must establish who you are as an all-star with the officials. Jason Tatum has never been in the top 15 in free throw attempts. So it's really tough when you get in the playoffs to get a call because you haven't established your mantra with the officials. The proper analytics in evaluating a team would involve 2 coaches, 2 opposing coaches. The assistant coach has a scout and the head coach. The 3 officials, 5 X's and 5 O's. So if you're doing player development and you don't have those 15 people in your player development, the NBA has a mandatory salary cap that they have to pay. So a guy don't have to be that good. He can play on a losing team, and he's still going to get millions of dollars. So what's your benchmark? Best wing player of the last 10 years. I mean, is that LeBron? How is Jason Tatum anywhere near LeBron?
Right. I get what you're saying.
Right? You guys fail, media guys, because you use the improper benchmark. They got you guys saying, well, I like. Compared to what? The best wing player in the last 10 years in the East has been LeBron, Dwayne Wade. When does Tatum do any of those kind of things?
Right. But he's still young. He still has a lot to learn. I mean, he's only in his 3rd, maybe 4th season in the league.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I just say, it's easy to have an opinion. Everybody's got one like a posterior, but the fact of the matter is when you benchmark him against the best wing players in the last 10 years, right, in the East, that's Paul George, Jimmy Butler, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard. Where's he fall?
Now, one last thing, and I'll let you go. What are your thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant?
Sean Marks is a player that played for me. I wish him all the best. It was a hell of a move. It was a hell of a get. All the stars came together. Um, I believe those two went there. A lot of it has to do with you take these young guys who play at these top colleges, your practice facilities cannot be less than what they're used to. Brooklyn has a practice facility they built adjacent to where they play. The Knicks practice facility is out in Terrytown. It's an issue for players. It's an issue for spoiled players. The Knicks do not want to address it. It has to be addressed. I'm a former Knick, played there for a season and a little bit. We used to practice over in New Jersey. It's always been a problem. The problem with the Knicks is that they will tell you that they were the first mover. So the problem with the first mover is sometimes you make a mistake that when everyone else catches up to you, they use you as the benchmark of what not to do. Also, the Knicks practice facility is in a building where in the cafeteria, you share the cafeteria with the hockey team. So why would, if I played at Duke, if I played at Kansas, if I played at Kentucky, why I'm in this situation, I'm supposed to be in the NBA, the highest level, and the facility is detrimental to what I'm used to. So Sean Marks, his ownership, they spent the money, they put the practice facility next door. It allows the guys to live downtown. Guys are spoiled. Like I told you, I've been dealing with Chris Carter for 40 years now. Spoiled rotten. They want what they want, and that's what the modern NBA is. The guys can't have, the teams cannot pay the player what they're worth. In other words, there's a cap, 40 million or whatever the number is they can make. It's not like they can make 60 million or LeBron can make, there's a cap. So because of the cap and because the owners have put so many guys on a team that would never vote to strike, the only alternative is guys say, well, if I'm going to play for this money and I got to play for a cap, I'm going to put myself in a position where I have a chance to win every year that I'm there. That's what LeBron has done. He's maximized the opportunity because the owners have him blocked. So all Durant and Kyrie did is they got us blocked, right? We want to go east, go to New York, but the New York they went to was based off of facilities, and the Knicks, from a coaching standpoint, have been in disarray. So I thought it was a great get for Sean Marks. I also think the head coach of Brooklyn does a very good job. His guys play hard. They're struggling now because they don't have enough talent, and the wear and tear of the season is getting on them. But I think that he's done a great job, and they'll be a lot better when they get those two back. The question is Kyrie's shoulder a degenerative problem that will be a problem going forward for a long time?